Welcome to Northern Italy at the Autodromo Nazionale Monza, also known as Monza, one of the most famous courses in the world. It has hosted GT, Endurance, Formulas 3, 2, and of course Formula 1. Now host Week 2 of the Indy Pro 2000 Championship, and we are going to bring you a very, very exciting one. My name is Jonathan Burke. Alongside me is Tom Davis. Tyler Maxton is in the production booth, as long as he's providing as well some of the on-car cams. The rest of the cams provided by Track Cams 22. 11 corners, just a little bit over 2.5 miles. One of the most famous circuits on the planet, and it's going to bring so much action, so much intensity, especially with how powerful the draft was last week. We are in for one heck of a race. And not only that, it's going to be some of the best in this series. Total of 70 people registered for this session, and we have a very, very big top split. I'm going to bring in my partner, Tom. And Tom, what are you expecting from this race? Obviously, it's going to be hugely intense and chaotic throughout. What are your expectations?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there with the word chaotic. Monza has a habit of fulfilling exactly that. You know, we got huge straight into big braking zone, and then we do that a few times and that's the lap. So we should get the opportunity for plenty of slipstreaming, hopefully a few ambitious but not too ambitious dives on the brakes. And you combine all of that, we've seen in the past that these cars love to stay together in a pack when we give them the slipstream, so we should have the chance to see potentially the whole field together as one, competing for the race win.
It's going to be lots of action, and it's going to be very, very difficult points to get in. And we're on, a reminder, week 2 of the schedule. Watkins Glen was last week. Very intense racing action on that one. Hoheim was able to take home the win for Rust Racing, and now we're at Monza. Next week starts our first oval. We head to the cornfields of Iowa, then we come back to Europe for a 2-week stay in Germany at the Nordschleife and the Hockenheim Ring. Then back in the United States for a long stay. We have Phoenix, Long Beach, Daytona, Laguna Seca, and USA. And then we come back to Spa and then to Barber. Really interesting schedule. And just to point out, like, this track is going to be probably one of the hardest challenges of the year, just because compared to a lot of other ones, it's very unique. Again, a little over 3.5 miles, long straightaways, plenty of drafting opportunities.
Yeah, it's always strange, isn't it, to call a track unique when the Nordschleife is on the calendar, but it really is. It's a style of driving that you don't get anywhere else. Everywhere else you're thinking, well, how do I get into this corner in the most efficient manner possible? How am I trying to potentially set up something so that I go over and under again in this particular part of the circuit? Here it's all about the slipstream. So you have almost an oval style of racecraft combined with that road race style of time trial driving that we're getting to see at the moment in qualifying. And nowhere else in the world does that. So it should produce fantastic racing, as will everything else on the calendar, as we've seen. This is not our first season covering this here on RaceSpot, and every single race has been incredible.
Look at the number 1 machine of Joni Heikkinen running through, looks like Scari chicane. Oh no, that's the second Variati chicane on his way to Curva di Lesmo. And look at how intense like some of these braking zones are going to be. Passing is going to come at a premium.
Yeah, exactly. And these are the Lesmos, arguably the most flowing, almost normal race circuit part of the track. It comes through a couple 90-degree rights where you'll see people look for moves. It will always close, the gap on the inside. So you got to make sure you got the overlap and you're going for it in a clean manner. And generally, when 2 people go side by side through there, the third person is looking to get involved up here because their run is always a little bit shocking, and you get plenty of action into Ascari as a result. Watch the sausage curve on the inside there. That one will capture it regardless of what car you're in. F1 car, GT3, it just doesn't matter. That one will put you in the wall, and then you're on the run up towards Parabolica.
Yeah, this is going to be an intense corner. And again, a reminder for those of you that did not see last time out in Italy, we had a Fittipaldi and the 2020 kart racing champion from Europe come into this race, and this race is no exception. Currently the pole sitter Alessandro De Tullio, karting champion down in Florida. Joni Hockenheim, that we're riding on board with right now, a 2018 World Rallycross champion on iRacing, and we still have some of our regulars. Our winner from last week, Nicolo Hayim, Christopher Herbigno for Delta Sport U4K, and as well as Frank Ewan, Lyubova Ostroskoya, Thomas Zeiger. It's a really packed field, and it's going to be super intense all the way throughout. I can't pick one driver, I think, to win this race.
No, it's really, really difficult. We got Michaela at Massa, who never fails to disappoint, regardless of where they start on the grid. And you mentioned Frank Nguyen. I think we've all got a little soft spot for Frank. He's always there, and he's always generally finishing somewhere between 5th and 7th in our broadcasted races. He's yet to get that big breakout performance, but we know that he can because you look at the stats, and generally he's got a top 3 at some point throughout the week. So we're just waiting for that fantastic sort of first win as such from Frank.
Yeah, this week could be a week to get it for some of these breakout drivers and even some of the regulars, but it's going to be, again, hard. This top group, just looking at the times, you know, there's about 4/10. There is a timing on the side. 4/10 in between those top 6. Will Redford taking a solid finish last week at Watkins Glen. You know, rubbed a few people the wrong way, unfortunately, but I think this time out he's hoping for a much better result. Mentioned last week's winner, Nicola Hoyim for Rust Racing, is in 2nd. And we have a full field of 21 drivers, almost near a full field today. It should be intense action.
It should be, and it will kick off immediately, because when you look at from the start line through to turn 1, it's over 600 meters. You know, you're over half a kilometer there. So we're already talking slipstreaming before we've even reached turn number 1, and as we've seen, people like to make overtakes here. They want to get up through the field nice and quick, because one of the easier ways to win this race is to start from pole and try and break away. So people who are qualifying a little bit further down the order than they would have wanted to be, maybe a little mistake, cost them a 10th, that's 3-4 positions, they're going to be looking to make progress from the off.
Qualifying wrapping up. Everyone has finished their laps. Only 3 drivers have not set a lap time. It's the 21 of Deadlot, 22 of Braun, and the 23 of Armrow have not set laps times. Ostroretskoska in the 21st position is that qualifier. So now qualifying is over. We advance to the grid, and what an exciting grid we have. Alessandro De Tullio is in that P1. Nikolai Haim is in P2. Joni Heikkinen, a Rallycross champion, in P3. Will Redford in P4. Owen Watts in P5. And Delta Sports U4K, Christopher Herbigno in P6. And Masia is in P7 alongside Amadima in P8. Those two often fighting amongst themselves, looking to get a nice top 5 today. Joni Heikkinen in P9. Adam Iskison rounding out the top 10. Thomas Zeiger and Frank Nguyen, 2 regulars, P11 and P12. Nicholas Pinger in the number 11 car in P13. Marcus Luzo, 3rd place karting champion in Europe, in P14. Alex Fournier, the lowest ranked driver in this grid, but don't worry, he's a high ranked iRacer, in P15. Julio Palacio in P16. Christopher Wright down in 17th, and David Meneth in 18. The number 8 of Glimmerwitz is in P19. Fabio Berchold in P20. Ostritskoska is in P21. And then we have the non-qualifiers, 22 of Deadlot, 23rd of Braun, and 24 for Armrow. And that's going to be interesting to see how far they can move up the field and how much confidence they're going to have as the race goes on. So a full field, 24 drivers in this top split. I think from my broadcast history, at least, that's the first time we've had that. The closest we've gotten was 23. And now we have this whole field with just 20 seconds left before the gridding is going to finish. This is going to truly be exciting, this run down to the first Variante chicane.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. I just hope they'll manage to keep it on the road. A little bit of squeeze in here and there just to really get us on the edge of our seats. But if they're all nice and respectful, as we know that they can be, we should be in for a cracker, because they'll be tight through turns 1 and 2, then they'll be slipstreaming in towards turns 4 and 5 at the next chicane. So it won't stop from there on out is the plan, assuming that they're all relatively calm on the very first one, else it would just be chaos, which, to be fair, would also be entertaining.
So the cars get rolling. You may notice it's not going to be a full pace lap around the 3.6 mile circuit. We're already in the Ascari chicane. And this run down to the Parabolica is going to be huge, I think, later on in the race, especially as we come to the end for getting those last second positions.
It's such a tricky corner to get the overtake done in as well, because we consider it a relatively big braking zone, but it's not exactly a slow corner at the end of the straight. And it's a corner where the exit is crucial. So if you go side by side with somebody, the third person is probably the one who's going to come up on top by the time you reach turn 1 once again. So it's all going to come down to a little bit of racecraft here, a little bit of strategy there, combined with the hectic race that we will no doubt get at Monza, as you do every single time.
We are rounding the Parabolica, a full field of 24 drivers, all taking the grid, and it's going to be an exciting one. Indeed, a 13-year-old go-karting champion from Florida is on pole. Last week's winner is alongside him, and a iRacing Rallycross champion sits behind them in third. What can the rest of the field do, and what can everyone do on the start? The pace car ducking down into pit lane, and we are green, green, green. From northern Italy, De Tullio gets a good jump, but he's going to be a sitting duck as they're going to head to the Variati chicane. And right now, Hoheim is right behind, getting as much of a draft as possible. They fan out 3 and 4 wide. Heikkinen looks like he's going to be a big loser on this start. He's already back to 5th. And everyone seems to survive the Variati chicane for the moment. That's Will Redford in new colors. No, slow car. There's a car around. As currently De Tullio still holds the lead. Hoheim's in second. Will Redford has picked his way up to third.
Yeah, I think that was Thomas Zeiger, the 17 in the background that we saw sideways. Clearly some other people caught up and stuff as well, but at the front it was relatively clean. De Tullio made a fantastic start. There's the 2 of Herbigno having a little bit of a look. It's always going to get tight there, but they managed to keep it clean that time through, and we come towards the Lesmos for the first time.
Herbigno had a rough week last week. He was probably one of the favorites to win that race, and unfortunately, a little bit of an error coming out of the boot at Watkins Glen cost him. He now has Will Redford right in front of him. 6 cars, I believe, got caught up in that incident, and it all starts back here. Frank Nguyen and company 3 wide, and a little bit of touch there, and some interesting contact.
It was just the smallest of touches, but when you take all the downforce off these cars at low speed, it only takes that to have the rear end become a little bit twitchy. Around it goes, and suddenly you're sideways on a bit of the track that is only that wide, so inevitably you're going to take somebody else with you.
Yeah, that was Marcus Luzo. Again, I mentioned him. 3rd place in the Cadet Comet class over in Europe last season. He's now down on pit road, as is Fabio Burchhold, Frank Nguyen, Thomas Zeiger, a lot of the regulars getting caught up in that one. Julio Palicio also had damage. So we have 17 cars still running. And it looks like De Tullio is going to lead lap 1. And here comes Hoheim to the outside. The Rust Racing driver, can he get him into the first Variati chicane? Will Redford now in new colors this week. Down to the inside. He has Herbigno for company. They're side by side. Contact!
Oh.
Spinning around goes De Tullio. Hoheim takes the lead. Herbigno goes to second. Joni Heikkinen is now in 3rd. I think Redford got caught up in it as well.
That was a little bit avoidable there, you'd have to say. Didn't anticipate the speed in the middle of the chicane, I think. We'll get a little replay of it. So you can see 14 has the line. Oh, it just comes across. The 5's nose was actually still in that one. Unfortunate for everybody else that got caught up in that. The front wing seems to have reappeared, though, so no permanent damage on that one, gladly and luckily.
Well, you say no permanent damage, and both cars have already been towed back to pit lane. We started with 24, and we only have 15 cars running. There's a slow car, and that is Hoheim, who I believe is going to the rear of the field. I think he either might have damage or maybe just taking responsibility for the accident, as now Christoph Herbigno for Delta Sport U4K is in the lead. Joni Heikkinen is now in second. And Massey and Iskinson are side by side going in to the Ascari chicane. This is not a recommended place. As now here comes Medema Watts battling hard as they realize this is going to be the fight for the podium.
Yeah, Massa had a little bit of a look. It slowed them both up through Ascari, though, and what was previously a little battle between the 2 of them now has 5 cars involved. There goes Watts taking a little bit of a look, but it's covered by Medema, who's now going back up the inside of it. Massa at Parabolica, a little bit of a mistake from Mikhail potentially, gives Anne the position, and that might just let Isaacson off for one straight. No, of course not. They're all tucking into the slipstream, and there's chaos up front as well.
To the inside, it comes at Masia on Medema, and I think the TNT Racing driver might get it, but we might go 3 wide. Look at the run the 9 car of Owen Watts gets going into the corner. He's now in P5, and alongside Isaacson. Isaacson looks like he's going to be losing out. TNT's Medema is now in the 3rd position, And currently, 2018 Rallycross winner Joni Heikkinen is now in the lead ahead of Delta Sport U4K's Christoph Herbigno.
Owen Watts was lovely through there, just put it on the outside, said you can't use this part to get the traction down, and as a result, at Massa just couldn't do it, and it was a brilliant exit from Watts to gain that position. They go side by side again, and there's more contact.
Spinning, the Rust Racing driver Demacia is spinning, and there's heavy, heavy contact. I believe Hoheim as well got caught up, and Nick Isaacson is in it. And now the top 10 all shaken up.
Oh.
And they have towed to pit lane. Hoheim has towed to pit lane. There are currently 10 cars sitting on pit lane. Only the 8 car of Glemowitz has retired.
Well, we started with a full field. Here's a little bit of a replay as what happened this time around then. 6 goes in deep and just gets a little bit of tap from Isaacson there. That was another avoidable one, isn't it? You go in deep, of course your speed's going to be a little bit lower at the second of the corners in the chicane, and just wasn't anticipated. As we said, little tap, all it takes to send these cars around.
So now we go back. This is now the battle for fifth. Christopher Wright, who qualified right inside the top 10, has had a quiet race so far, and I think that's going to be the benefit, at least, for the number 10 machine. He has Pingner right behind him. David Dedlock, who didn't qualify, is behind in 7th place. Good job with the 21 machine. Austria Skoska, the Russian streamer, she's in 8th. David Meneth is in 9th, and Arturo Armour, who also didn't qualify, is now in 10th. As we're looking at this battle, Pingner to the inside is taking that position and move him up into the top 5.
That was a nice move there. That's exactly what the other guys have been looking to do on the past couple laps. Then gets a little bit squirrely on the exit of 2, though, which is going to open up the slipstream opportunity through the Curva Grande.
Yeah, the draft is going to be huge, and even for the battle for the lead, and we've had these little, almost duels, I would say. We have the duel for the lead up ahead with Herbigno and Heikkinen. Watson and Medema are having their own duel, and this is the duel kind of for 5th. It's a little bit of a dogfighting here in Northern Italy.
You got to respect the guy who's behind in this situation as well, because it can be so tricky to brake as late as is required to stay with your rival, but not so late that you just hit the back of them as a result of the closing up under braking. You know, we talk about a gap of 0.2. Obviously, on circuit, that gap is less distance when you're going slowly. So as a result, you need to account for that. Brake at just the right spot to stay with them, but not hit the back of them, and it really is a difficult skill.
What is going to be a difficult skill is how can this 2-car hold up Heikkinen on the front straightaway. They've traded back and forth multiple times, but right now for Delta Sport U4K, this is a good position to be in too, because this is, I believe, their first season running, and they've had some strong teams, TNT Racing and Rust Racing, obviously strongest, but currently 2 cars on the podium with Watson and Herbigno.
This is brilliant from these two, particularly just the fact they're 3.2 seconds clear of everybody else. They can have a little fight, and it's not going to cost them immediately. Here comes Heikkinen to the inside. Again, gets it done just at the beginning of the braking zone, slows it down, pulls back to the racing line. Now, will they get a decent exit? Actually up on the sausage curb a little bit. Handles it well, and gets lovely traction out of turn number 2.
Now, it's going to be the Curva Grande right here, and then the run up to the second Variati chicane. You're just going to have to keep close, I think. That's going to be back and forth every lap between these two. They've traded back and forth almost every lap. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. A little bit of an update from pit road. Thomas Zeiger has retired, as has Isaacson and Masia. Luzio, Palicio, and Birchhold have reappeared on the track. We're still waiting for Hoheim, Redford, and DiTullio to see if they're going to run, as well as Frank Newen. I think when you know 10 cars are on pit road, there might be a benefit to sticking around, trying to pick up a few places.
For sure. Given that we're not even a third of the way through this one yet, there's bound to be a few more incidents given the rate at which they were occurring. So come out, see if you can nab a couple people, pick up a couple championship points, because that might be all that you need come the end of it. This series consistently stays close right to the very end. And as a result, you need all those little edges. Taking a little edge of the gravel there was Medema, but she's still coming. She's closing up. Got the benefit of the slipstream to compensate for that, and she'll be looking for the move into turn number 1.
Yeah, this TNT Racing machine has been fast for Medema. She has some of the fastest times all week. And in such strong of a field, started a bit lower than I think they wanted, but if you're running 4th and you're on pace for a podium, this is a good place to be. You've avoided all the trouble.
Yeah, interesting that. Oh, a little bit of a lift. Doesn't want the position. There we go. So the first little bit of gamesmanship that we're seeing in these duels now. The choice to not go for the overtake, instead sit behind, bide your time. We see this in MotoGP actually a lot, where you want to be the rider or the driver that's behind, because that way your opponent never ever knows where you're strong. When it comes to the last lap, last couple lap duel, you're always going to be favored as a result.
Another change for the Reed. Herbigno has gone in front of Häkkinen, and this is going to be a duel, I think, until the end. Again, Joni Häkkinen, first off, strongest iRating in the field, and not just the field, and all of the split of all 70 drivers registered. And then Christoph Herbigno, Delta Sport U4K ace. We've seen him time and time again in endurance series for that team, doing really, really well. And now we head back to this fight for 5th place. And again, it's just a dogfight, almost old school World War I planes fighting in northern Italy in 2020. Just these little dogfights. I don't think anyone's going to get close enough to form another big pack again. But prove me wrong. We've already saw Medina get off into the grass, and maybe if Watts slows up as well, it could be a 4-way fight.
For sure, and all it takes is a little bit of a move through Ascari. There's a second gone. You know, these guys, they're separate, but they're not that separate. So if one of these pairings goes for a fight, particularly the front one, all the other ones are going to begin to close up, and then the fight gets bigger, they slow down more, even more cars can look to join it before, you know, they're all back together as one again.
You can see on the right side that battle for the lead between Herbigno and Häkkinen, and as you see on the left, the battle for the edge of the top 5 between Wright and Pigneur. And right now, the 11 car back down the inside, the all-black machine able to come back in front of the first Variety chicane and take 5th place, although they have switched back and forth quite often. And the other advantage to doing that is you'll at least get the draft down the front straightaway, and you will gap a little bit. Dendelot and Ostrowskoska are a bit far behind to challenge them. So I think this is a good benefit of maybe switching back and forth and trading the draft with each other.
Yeah, there's benefits to all of these things, you know. It's no coincidence that we see a couple of the pairings choosing to stick behind and a couple of them always swapping. It's just, how are you not going to lose the time? You know, how are you not going to leave yourself vulnerable to someone like Lyubov in the number 20 car, who is close enough to be a problem if you make it a problem, you know. She likely won't get there on her own, but is close enough that if you give her that opportunity, you know she's going to take it.
And the question is,
the
question is, where are these big moves going to take place? Because we've seen a move in the Ascari chicane already, but it's gone wrong, and we've only seen the first Variety be that big passing zone.
Yeah, it's one of those circuits, isn't it, where it's very easy to say, we'll just go for it in turn 1, it's at the end of the longest straightaway. But when you get to the last lap, if they pass you on turn 1, you've got the whole lap to come back at them, you know. Turn 4 or 5, that chicane, you can make an overtake into there. You can make an overtake into the Lesmos. You can make an overtake into Ascari, out of Parabolica. It's all possible. We just haven't quite seen it yet. You know, they're holding those little chips back. They're making sure that they've got a little something in reserve to catch their rival out. And we'll see how that one produces across this race, because that certainly will come into play. It's just a question of when.
Car around, it looks like, I believe it's the 10 machine of Wright has gone around, and has the 11 machine also been involved as well. They are both dropping through the order, and the 11 has towed back to pit lane. Now outside, or just inside the top 10, goes Christopher Wright.
Something's happened there for sure. Two got one of them facing the wrong way, the other one back into pit lane. You know that there's been some sort of contact, maybe some sort of squeezing happening. Here's going to be the answer. RaceSpotTV replay coming straight to you. Christopher Wright. Well, just overshoots the braking, you think, and clips the back of the 11 car. Here we go. This angle will tell all. Yeah, just quicker than anticipated into the braking zone. Doesn't manage to move out the way in time, and it's just the smallest touch between front wing end plate, right rear tire. And as we said, that's all it takes. Around she went.
Yeah, the difficult thing about these cars, too, is that this rear suspension is quite sensitive. We saw it last week with an incident with Mitchell Ian Green and Will Redford. Just that slight touch of the wing and into the gravel, and Mitchell Ian Green's day was done with severe damage, and that's exactly what happened to the 11 machine. They are now down on pit road, and a reminder of those cars that were on pit road for repairs. Well, Redford has returned to the track and is running in 13th, probably going to pick up a spot from the 11 machine. Xander DeTulio is running in 14th. Marcus Luzio has also been running around. Nikolai Hoheim has unfortunately disconnected, so Rust Racing having a red day. They ran into each other as well at Massey and Hoheim, the two Rust Racing machines, and they're going to have no cars on the podium for the first time I've seen in quite some time.
As a team boss, running a little bit of an esports venture, shall we say, I would be absolutely fuming if the two cars ran into each other. That's the worst possible scenario, and they'll know that. They'll know that whoever's in charge of the whole operation will be giving them a little talking to after this one. There's going to be a little talking to here in a second, because the one car was weaving around looking for the overtake left and right and maybe even center, but it didn't quite pay off despite the two. Christoph Herber now getting a little bit nervous through that chicane.
And now as this race goes on, we're a bit past halfway, 17 laps, 9 have been completed. Now you want to be a bit more aggressive. You want to show that you can pass in other places besides that front straightaway, and I think that's what Heikkinen has done. Not going to be rally crossing, I hope, as he won in 2018, but looking into the Ascari chicane, just flashing that wing, flashing where you want to go. Just put that pressure on, and maybe force Christoph to make a mistake.
There's a little bit of lifting there as well, so I think there's the possibility of the move into Ascari with the slipstream that we haven't seen yet. It's all just gamesmanship, isn't it? You can feel the anticipation building. If you've ever watched a race in any category here at Monza, you know there's famous overtakes. The one that always comes to mind for me is Vettel around the outside of Alonso at turn 3. That sort of stuff is possible, and we are going to see it because the field is that closely matched that it really is. Whoever's the car behind is the quicker of the cars.
And you can see both of these fights now, the fight for third and the fight for first. Down the inside goes Heikkinen, and he's going to be able to get Herbigno into the first Variante chicane. And again, they just keep switching lap after lap, but the problem is they're also compromising themselves a little bit. I've noticed that gap between those two and Herbigno's teammate of Owen Watts fluctuating a little bit. If they start fighting too hard, they may bring them into the fight.
Yeah, here comes Amro. That's a nicely executed move, that is. Got alongside, did the last little bit of it on the brakes, and then never opened up the chance for a cutback because it was just so wonderfully positioned on the apex. Will give the opportunity for a slipstream, but you can't stop that one. It's always going to be there at Monza.
And this is a really good fight between the 24 and the 23. Again, neither of these two qualified. They both started at the rear of the field, just surviving all the chaos, and Fournier and Armro now inside the top 10. Armro running the 2020 livery of Mercedes, as it looks like Austria Skoska has gotten around Mena. It looks like Mena has had a bit of an off. And these drivers, again, having good days, just avoiding the chaos, just taking their time and putting your car in the right place.
Yeah, you got to be precise, particularly in an open wheeler. You need to be precise in a GT car here, let alone something that could go as wrong as this. Here comes a fight back from the 24, Alex Fournier getting back through on that Mercedes Petronas-inspired livery of Amro. Further up, once again, slipstream, 16 pulls to the outside of Leobov's number 20 car. I still love the livery on the 20, and gets it done before we even reach Parabolica.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of patience, I think, back here as compared to towards the front. I think towards the front they know what's at stake. Back here, I think all these guys were not expecting really to finish in the top 10. Well, that's what happens when 10 cars end up on pit road in the first 2 laps. As now Austria Skoska, the Russian streamer, getting a huge bit of draft from Mena. Can she make the move? Not quite. You can see in the background Armor and Fournier again side by side. They're just trading position back and forth. And this fight for the outside of the top 10 is going to continue.
I tell you what, Fournier was incredible on the brakes there. You see how much quicker he was all the way through that braking zone than the car he was overtaking. That was really impressive. And if it comes down to a one-lap fight and he's going to be that strong everywhere, you'd be hard-pressed to keep him behind if he's the guy who's attacking you. That was really impressive.
I can back around Christoph Herbigno. I want to count how many passes these two have made for the lead. I think every lap there has been a different leader at the line.
Yeah, we need a a BTCC style get a point for leading a lap type thing going on here, because they would have each had the point and then they would have traded it back and forth time and time again, and nobody else has even had a look in since the early chaos in this race. Once again, here comes Christoph Harbino looking to the outside. That's a bit of a late move from Heikkinen. Not blocking, but just showing the intent of, hey, look, if you want it, you're going to have to go for it if it's going to be that tight into the corner. Anywhere else, you can just slipstream past me. We're not going to fight too hard until the last couple laps, but if you're going for it in the corner, let's play fair. Let's show a little bit of respect here.
I think the other thing, too, a reminder, this is an open setup series, so we're going to watch how these setups develop. I think that one car is fading a little bit on the exit of the corners because Harbino was closer than he ever was going into Parabolica that I've seen, at least in the past few laps.
Yeah, and that is one of the sections where if the rear tires are going, or the fronts even through Ascari, you're not going to be able to take it as quickly as you would like. It's one of the first corners where you notice that. The other places, of course, is on the traction through the chicanes. We're about to get another one, and we are easily able to tell if you got the grip. That car clearly has the grip, but also has a ton of speed. That was the 24 of Alex Fournier. Goes across the curbs. Will no doubt have some sort of slowdown penalty. Might have gotten away with it, but isn't going to try and gain the position. And
oh no, that's Watts around.
What's happened? That's got to be contact, surely. Was Watts
the front wing is gone.
Yeah, front wing's just nowhere near. I think they've ended up in the wall just beyond turn 4. Here's your replay. Look at it. Take us through it.
Looks like the fight with Medema. There's 1 and 2 heading now into the second Variati chicane. Did he just get it all wrong on exit? Yep, into the gravel, all wrong on exit for Owen Watts. And what was a 1-2 for Delta Sport U4K is now going to be a long recovery drive, maybe for Owen Watts. The plus side is that he has a huge gap to David Dedlot in the 21 back in 5th, but how long can you run without a front wing around here?
Yeah, I mean, you want to get rid of as much downforce and drag as you can, right? So probably longer than any other circuit on the calendar, but
is this
it's
a recommended
not ideal.
setup?
I wouldn't say it's recommended. I do think it'll impact you on the brakes, but in a straight line, it might not be that much of a problem.
Well, we already got our answer. Dedlot has already gone around Watts into 4th, and I think David Menez is going to get Owen Watts soon, as Harbino has gone back down the inside of Heikkinen for the lead of the race. And again, these two just keep trading positions, but when do you pull the trigger and start being more aggressive? We've seen the passing through the first Variati chicane. The second one we haven't seen as much, and through Ascari they've been very timid. When do you pull that trigger?
Not yet, clearly, because I reckon, again, Heikkinen chose to just lift off the throttle a smidge through there. Here's the battle between the 24 and the 23. They're still going at it. They don't care about this sit around gamesmanship stuff. They're just swapping the positions here, there, and everywhere. That time, that was a very nice exit, once again, from Alex Fournier. He seems to have the car nicely underneath him, and if anything, it's just the slipstream that's keeping Amro with him.
Yeah, we saw his 24 rally crossing a little bit. I think Heikkinen would have been proud of that move. A little bit of a joker lap through the Variati chicane, but now at 23 behind, and they also still have to worry about Christopher Wright. Haven't talked much about him, as now, yeah, that 9 car is suffering a lot, because there goes Austria Skoska into 6th place, and that 9 car continues to drop down the order.
Yeah, not able to get the power down out of the corners, so even though the fact that you might have a little bit less drag, you just don't have the grip to utilize the engine, and as a result, you don't end up going quicker anyway.
A little bit of an update of some of those guys that had accidents. Will Redford has gone all the way up into 12th position. Marcus Luzio is about 50 seconds behind him. Julio Palacio is about a lap behind him. Alessandro Di Tullio is back on pit road. Fabio Birchold is going to get a spot maybe from him. And we've lost Hoheim and Masia, Isaacson, Zeiger, and Glimmerwitz from this race. 6 retirements, 2 Rust Racing drivers, 1 TNT driver. It was a rough one today for some of these guys.
Yeah, not ideal, to say the least. You get down to Will Redford, 3 laps down, you go, ooh. If you're 3 laps down in a 17-lap race, it's a pretty tough day at the office, but he's still coming. He's a fan favorite, as we've quickly spotted. Able to contend with Leobov, I'd say. Leobov's another one that we tend to see a lot of support for, so hopefully Redford will go a little bit better in future events, because I'm sure it would just be chaotic in chat if he did.
Well, now, here's a complication. The 24 and the 23 have caught the slower car of Owen Watts, probably not at a good time. They're going through the Curva Grande, now into the second Variati chicane. Tight quarters, Armro able to get that pass done. The 9 car is going to be looking at maybe an outside the top 10 finish, because right behind is Wright and Braun. And that car again falling quickly. And it's just a race of what could have been. Owen was so strong at the front, able to contend with Medema, but unfortunately, that little mistake he made cost him a lot.
A couple of these guys have, I reckon, lost the tires now. That was a huge drift from Amro for a second. Every time we look at this battle, I can't help but look in the background, because Christopher Wright is four-wheel drifting his machine through every single chicane. He has complete control over it. Very skillfully done, but terrifying to watch in the top of the picture.
A reminder, we still have an intense battle for the lead between, a clutch driver from Delta Sport U4K and Endurance Style Racing at the front and a 2018 World Rallycross champion right behind him. And they've gone back and forth every lap. They've also traded fastest lap back and forth every lap. And have put a 5-second gap now on TNT and Spadima in third. It looks like that'll be a lonely race for them. But a podium is a podium, I think, for TNT Racing. Denlot and Meneth both at the rear of the field coming up as the 1 car flashed the wing to the inside. Thought about a dive in the Variani chicane. Not going to happen as they head to De Lesmo.
There's a little bit of testing there, I think. That was a case of, well, we're on lap 15 of 17. I might go for it next time around. I just want to see how you react to me pulling out. And the answer is, Herbig didn't react at all. So if you want to try the dive, it's certainly an option now because there's just no defense whatsoever.
I got to flash the wing here, and yes, he does a little bit to the inside, but back behind Herbig, just being patient, being calm and smooth. That's what you have to be here, because these two have not really put a foot wrong all race long.
No, but you don't have to be overtaken. All you have to do is drive in a straight line, and the other guy's going to be quicker than you. Again, I reckon there was the option to make the move if Heikkinen wanted it. Definitely pulled out, was closing, and then suddenly not. So another choice to back out from the one machine, but the opportunities to make the overtake coming down all the time. So surely at some stage going to have to go for the lunge or even just a simple drive through in a straight line that seemed available a couple of occasions.
And a little bit of a reminder, you see 2 cars in the background. That is Medema and Dotulio. Dotulio is not on the lead lap. The Florida kart racing champion unfortunately caught up in a bit of an accident. Goes from 2nd, at least right now, to 15th, so a really tough day for him. But he might have a bit of fun with the TNT racing driver, at least for the end of this race. As this battle for the lead, we have 2 laps to go. When do you make a dive that might be risky? You're going to have to wait to the last lap, but when and where do you do it? Because if you're doing the first corner, you're right, Tom, it's too early.
I reckon I go turn 1 on the final lap, in the knowledge they get me back into that chicane that we've just gone through, and then you're looking for it into Parabolica, because the overtake's surely on through there. There's just too much of a slipstream, too much of a braking zone for it not to be available, and the line is very soon after it, so you can go for the block pass, sacrifice your exit, and still beat them to the finish.
They'll run down to the Ascaria chicane. Herbigno leads. They go underneath the bridge of what was the old oval. You can still race that if you want on the iRacing service. There's plenty of NASCAR races that obviously hosted, not official, that go around that oval. And now down the run to the Parabolica. If you are that 1 car, do you want to pass now if you have the draft? Herbigno is already trying to break it.
Not a chance. Not a chance. You wait. Hold your nerve. If you go for it now, you end up without the opportunity. For me, 3 overtaking opportunities. Like we said, turn 1, the 2nd chicane, and then into the final corner. You go for it on the first one, you hold all of the cards, and that's what Heikkinen's going to be looking to do. Now's the moment of truth. We're about to start the final lap. What's the game plan?
Heikkinen down to the inside. White flag is in the air. Heikkinen side by side with Christoph Herbigno. They're going to head into the first Variati chicane. All clean right now. The 2018 iRacing WRX champion into the lead. Herbigno is now right behind, but he will have the advantage of the draft. They're heading through Curva Grande now under the 2nd Variati chicane. draft closing and closing and closing for Herbigno, but I don't know if he's going to be able to make a move. Heikkinen gets a little defensive. Herbigno a little bit patient. He knows he still has a little bit of time. And Medema, remember, waiting in the distance if something goes wrong with these two. There you can see the TNT Racing machine. Coming out of Delesmo, a little bit sideways, both of these drivers. They're putting it all on the line. Again, they traded fastest laps back and forth, and they have been the two fastest drivers on the racetrack every single lap. Underneath the old oval bridge, we're heading to the Ascari chicane. Can Herbigno make a dive? Herbigno to the inside. Can he be late on the brakes? No. Heikkinen is the last of the late breakers, able to stay in front of Christoph Herbigno. We only have one corner to go, and it is the Curva Parabolica. How defensive does Heikkinen get? Looks to the inside, to the outside. Goes the two machine. Here comes Christoph Herbigno. Almost banging wheels. Herbigno, a wing out in front. He's going to have the outside line into the Parabolica. Heikkinen hanging on as best as he can. They're coming out of the corner. It's going to be a drag race to the line. Who is it going to be? 1 and 2 fighting for P1 and 2. I don't know who got it. It says, at the moment, it says Johnny Heikkinen by 0.005.
Well done, Jody. That was perfectly timed. I tell you what, I really thought Herbigno was coming. The outside line all the time, just got the speed, but it was just too long for them to get that. We think timing screen's got a little bit of a glitch on it where it doesn't seem to have given Joni the checkered flag. Everybody else is coming through tight as you like. That's a wonderful little run from Christopher Wright after having that car on the limit every single lap. And Davis Braun completes your top 10.
Just waiting for some of those wrecked drivers to make their way through the field. But Johnny Heikkinen and Christoph Herbigno take a bow. It was a dogfight lap after lap. And the 2018 iRacing World Rallycross Champion stands on the podium here in 2021 as the winner at Monza. Christoph Herbigno again for Delta Sport U4K comes in second. TNT's Racing and Medema comes home in third. We were so focused on that fight for that final spot, on the top spot on the podium, we kind of forgot about these three right here. David Dedlot, P21 on the grid, comes all the way to fourth. David Menoth was P17 on the grid. Oster Raskoska was the last qualifier and is able to get to sixth. Alex Fournier and Arturo Almiral, P7 and P8, were having a good fight. Christopher Wright had a bit of an issue, cost him several spots down in P9. And Davis Braun, quiet race for him, but he runs home in P10. Owen Watts, a little bit of a fault of his own, but he's able to come home in P11th. It was a Delta Sport U4K, 1 in 3 possibly on the line. Unfortunately, he is in 11th. Will Redford is in P12. He got caught up in a lot of that mess in laps 1 and 2, as did the third place European karting champion, Marcus Luzio. Julio Palacio in P14. De Tulio from Florida, the Florida kart racing champion, in 15th. Fabio Berchtold and Frank Nguyen, some of the regulars, 17th and 16th, caught up in that first Variati chicane accident. Joey Heikkinen as well in P18. Nicholas Pinger and Nikolai Hoyim rounding out the top 20. It was a bad day for Rust Racing. Hoheim and Admasia, we're going to see here when we scroll down, 20th and 21st. Adam Isaacson as well retired after just a few laps, as did TNT's Thomas Zeiger and Glimmerwitz. Both had issues going in to the Variati chicane on lap 1. So that was one of the most intense races we had, and Johnny Heikkinen again burning it down on the front straightaway. 0.005.
Can't ask for more. You can't ask for more than that. We had a last lap battle that had multiple attempts at overtakes, a couple that almost worked, but ultimately it was the turn 1 move. That's what we were saying. A valiant attempt from Herbigno to try and go around the outside at Parabolica, and I genuinely thought Christoph was going to have it for about half of that corner, but it didn't quite get there. If the line was 1-2 meters further down the straight, it might have been a different result, and that's how close this series is.
Yeah, close and intense. And I want to see like that drag race back to the line because I couldn't tell just from the angle we got who got it at first. I was waiting for timing to be official, and I'm glad I waited for that because it was so close.
It was ridiculously close. Can you imagine? You cover the inside into Parabolica, you're thinking, right, surely I've got this. Look how tight that is. What is that? Maybe 20 centimeters? Even less? That is ridiculously tight between the two of those. Imagine being sat. You cover the inside into Parabolica, you put your rival on the outside, you go, right, surely I've got this. And they just keep on coming. That would be terrifying at the end of a grueling race where you've been swapping the whole way through. You think you've got it done. Oh, hang on. Oh, hang on. Oh, he's still coming. He's still coming. And then you just about reach the line 20 centimeters ahead of your rival.
There was a famous call during an NASCAR Talladega race, 0.02 of a second. Well, 1/16th of an inch, and that's about 3/16ths of an inch, 5,000ths of a second between those two. And again, let's give a round of applause for a lot of that top 10, many of whom started from the back and just avoiding some of that chaos. Again, it's a case of what could have been for a lot of those guys that finished outside. Xander DiTullio qualified on that front row. Unfortunately, he was out early. The kart racing champion and Formula 4 driver, you can follow him on Facebook. I was researching a lot of these guys before. Nikolai Huim and Masia Rust Racing had a difficult day. It was just, and they ran into each other through no fault of either their own.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? You mentioned people staying out of trouble and doing well. It's an often undervalued skill in racing. We talk about qualifying pace, we talk about ability to keep the tires in check, but one of the skills that Monza brings to the fore is your ability not to get caught up in somebody else's incident, and that's exactly what Medema did. It's exactly what your leaders did, because remember, a lot of that chaos was at the front, and as a result, you can guarantee the guys that ended up getting caught up in it, they will look at themselves going, right, how do I make sure this doesn't happen next time? It's just the mindset of a racing driver, always looking to improve, and Monza's one of those tracks that makes you think about things that you don't normally think about.
So I'll wrap up our race here at Monza. It was insane. It brought you everything it probably wanted. A little bit of chaos at the start. We saw 10 cars on pit lane. And then 17 laps later, we get 5,000ths between 1 and 2. Reminder, next week we'll go ahead to Iowa. Same time, same place. That should be a very interesting run. And then we head to Germany. Going to be a very, very interesting schedule. And if the racing this week's prove anything, this season is going to be super exciting. So for myself, for my colleague Tom Davis, Tyler Maxson in the production booth, as well as providing some of the onboard cams, track cams 22, we say so long from Monza. And reminder, follow us on RaceSpotTV on Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube for more racing action. We have the 12 hours of Sebring coming up tomorrow. I know everyone is going to want to tune into that. So have a good night from Northern Italy.
It's not a game, it's a